Welcome to the APWASI Wine Buzz. And today, I would very much like to welcome our guest, Natalie Wang. Now, Natalie is the founder and editor of Vino-Joy, and that is the only English written website based in Hong Kong, specifically about wines in China. She has a master's degree in journalism and graduated from Hong Kong University. Now, I have always found Natalie's articles to be incisive, and in my opinion, she is a wine journalist extraordinaire. But first of all, before I continue, we would like to congratulate you, Natalie, on your selection for the Woman in the Wine and Spirits Award, the 50 Women List of Excellence. So well done to you.
Thank you very much, Clinton. Thank you very much. That's very kind of you. Yeah, I'm very humbled and delighted to be included. It came as a surprise. I didn't even know they had this award until some people started to forward it to me. It's definitely great to be recognized for what we're doing here and to be included with so many women that I admire and look up to. It's truly an honor.
Well, I believe it's rightly so, because if one is looking to find the true information, the hidden gems, those diamonds that we sort of find encrusted in between the stones and soil, then we should be coming to see and read your articles. I mean, recently you came up with Accolade Wines, the allegedly scouting in Northwest China for vineyards. You were talking about the Chilean wines, how their ascendancy into China. And quite recently, I call it the Guangdong Conti, the article by Nicholas, where Nicholas Schutten, the North Asia sort of manager for YSL and APAC, L'Oreal, and his remark. So I see you as the Joan of Arc of the wine ladies world. However, you're not going to get burnt at the stake. Rather, I see you as holding the hot coals to the feet of those that need to really give us the information.
Absolutely. I think, wine journalism is very different from wine rating and wine review. Wine review is very subjective. It's largely dependent on how one feels about, something. And I feel like as an industry, as a trade, I see wine trade as a sort of subject that we cover the same as finance, as trading. You need to be holding someone accountable, because as wine reviews can write gloating things about this, but wine industry, figures don't lie, data doesn't lie. You look at it as a trade, as who are the key players in this, who should be held responsible for this. A lot of people don't like it, but some things need to be said and some things need to be reported on.
Now that takes me to my question. You're located in Hong Kong, you're running Vino-Joy, the only English website dedicated to the China market. That is both a rod and a champion's cup, many might say. Which one do you feel is closer to the truth for you, Natalie?
I think it's more like a rod. It's watched definitely, and I feel like running a website is like sort of like feeding a beast. It's always hungry, people want more. What is going on in China? So I constantly feel like you sort of have to give people what's the latest things, what's the important news. Certainly keeps me going and keeps me busy during the day, which is a good thing. I do feel more pressured and encouraged in that way.
And please do feel that way. And this is the time when, I also get that pressure, and I've got coals under my feet with my co-host, and my co-host is Stephanie, all right?
Yeah.
And Stephanie Hogan really keeps me there. So Stephanie, she has a great experience.
Natalie, I have to keep him in line. He goes a little bit like, zigzag. So
Stephanie, you're doing the most important job. Someone has to do it.
Yes, well, I must say it's a pleasure. So So it's wonderful to have you on our show, and thank you for taking the time to join us. And we completely value your take on what's happening, because as always, it is a global market and it is moving very fast, even though some countries may be slow in opening up. I know that, being a Hong Kong girl, you are still moving and shaking, as we say, with everything happening over there. And I wanted to, with that, kind of bring you into how you, maybe a little background information about how you actually decided to focus on the wine industry. Was it planned? Was it faith?
It was absolutely by accident. So what happened, I studied journalism at HKU. After graduation, I worked in news first. So I was covering a little bit on China politics. And I quickly realized, it's a very depressing subject, as you can imagine. So after doing that for a few years, and I decided that maybe I should try something a little bit lighthearted, something that's a little bit fun. So I went into lifestyle and luxury, covered jewelry and gem industry for a little bit, but that's more.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I did that, and then I saw a job post from James Suckling. He was looking for someone to manage his website, so I joined James' team. And before that, growing up in China, I didn't have the habit of drinking wine at all. My only experience, it's a cliche, but my only experience when I was growing up with wine is when my uncle bought a giant bottle of wine along with a bottle of Sprite. So we actually mixed it with Sprite, and then that was my first encounter with wine. So it was only after joining James and I started to learn more about wine, tasting wine with him. So up till this day, it's still quite appreciative of him.
Yes, well, James would expose you fairly diversely. And I know, speaking with James and spending time with him and his wife, at Wine and Dine, that he definitely, is very active in the market, and I think, like the fact that he chose to move from the States to be positioned in Hong Kong was a very bold decision, but I think with what's going on in Asia was the right move.
Oh yeah, I think for sure. He moved here, I think early on in 2010. Started his website, and now it's absolutely flourishing for him. He got his feet in the market early on.
Yeah. So you, being the grunt girl, because I know you were doing the work, got totally boomeranged into being very busy, which again brings so much knowledge and contribution to our show. So I wanted to ask you a little bit more, or if you would share with us, like, what also influenced you in your life, because clearly you did state that you were a journalist by heart and a driven woman, I can tell.
Like you, Stephanie, yes.
Yeah.
Well, us Hong Kongers, we're still alive.
Yeah, I know. I think for me, the influences in my life, it's just really my mom, coming from I grew up in Chongqing, and my mom was very present. Yeah, so I only lived here in Hong Kong for about 9 years. I moved away 1 year to Bangkok to help James set up Great Wines of Italy over there. But yeah, really by heart, I'm a Chongqing girl, and my mom
grew up in China, Natalie.
Yeah.
Oh, so you like hot food then? Very good. I like that. Spicy food. Okay.
I eat it as breakfast, I tell people, but just kidding. So my mom was really hardworking. I think from early on, she gave me this sense of work ethics that till today I still very much treasure. Yeah, and other people like my professor from school in Chen, she's sort of one of the first Asian American journalists, working in mainstream media, really pioneering that for a lot of Asian journalists. I think she's a good influence and huge influence in my life as well, in my career. And in general, so many other women in the wine industry that I look up to, like Jean Lee in the wine world, and Deborah here. I think they're very helpful and supportive for what I'm doing. So I
Course.
really, yeah, I really look up to those women for inspiration.
So, now that, we know a little bit more about you, but I had no idea you were, raised in Chongqing. And I
Yeah.
think that must have had some influence on you. But I can share one thing. I think if there is a true love in the world, and I'm not talking about, going into a romance section here, but real true love and unbridled, unquestioning, and just really giving you the love is the love of a mother for a child. So
Yeah.
like you, I've also been greatly influenced by my late mother. So
Mm.
I think many are, and I, just give a toast to the mothers there. And I think
Oh yeah,
it's that that's given you
absolutely.
that strong spine, Natalie, because I'm going to come back to this lightning rod that
Mm.
we spoke about. It comes in, it has spark, it has shock, it has awe. And that one, that posting of yours on the DRC Guangdong County, you attracted quite a bit. What is the real story behind that? And why did they,
Mm.
this
I think the real story basically, I have a friend, so he's drinking a lot of fine wines, high-end wines, and constantly posting on social media. One day he posted a story about Guangdong County. He said he drank it. So I've been begging him to secure another bottle and bring it over to dinner, and he did. So, at a wine dinner with a lot of wine geeks, we shared that bottle, and he was telling me how he got the bottle, how he had the sauce. So I posted that, on my social media, and some people very angry and said, "Oh, of course it's a China-made, fake wine. Obviously, it's a fake wine, but we're talking about how this wine got to be made and distributed in China." There are a lot of stories. Some are saying this wine was made by the chateau for Macau, for a casino. And then
Mhm.
there's some stories about how this wine was actually, allegedly, this wine was sold as a private label to an importer in Guangdong. So that's how, according to my friend, he got his hands on the bottle. So it's very interesting because the wine is not like a one night a miracle or one night new thing. It has been around in the market for so many years, and people always say, China has a problem with fake wine, and granted, China does have a huge problem with counterfeit, lookalike wines, IP infringement. But at the same time, this wine has been in the market for so long, yet we don't see much from the winery doing their part, sort of to protecting their brand. We have similarly, Penfolds or Lafite having similar problems in China, but what they did is holding authorities to their feet to the fire. They launched, Penfolds and lengthy lawsuits against counterfeiters and
Mhm.
squatters in the market. Yet the attitude that we're seeing from the chateau, I reached out to them first of all, never received a reply, even up till today.
Mhm.
And and then this lady, yeah, this lady's reply basically, "Oh, it's made in China, it's a China fake wine, it's China's problem." But then at the same time, shouldn't the wineries, be doing something?
Absolutely. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that
this
what
kind
you
of
were
thing,
doing, yes, of course.
yeah, this kind of thing, it's bad for the industry. China should have been doing more, absolutely. But at the same time, you should have wineries sort of prodding, authorities in China. Hey guys, we have this wine. If it's not supplied by us in bulk as OEM wines, you guys should be doing more. We're supplying the evidence. We have the photos. Blah blah blah. None of that has been done. So I felt like, because a lot of the attention has been on China doing fake wine, blah, blah, blah. But at the same time, wineries should be doing more as well. If you have this, someone wrote about this in decanters 6 years ago, you should be presenting that as evidence to the authorities. The fact is, the importers still till today are telling people this is supplied by the chateau. So we got the source from the chateau. We are labeling this, selling this as a private label and not for sale. If this is not the case, the winery should be, the one talking to the importer directly. Let's stop this. You did not get this from us, blah, blah, blah. Yet none of that was done. So I felt quite disappointed more, more than anything else.
Well, I thought you were quite restrained, but Stephanie.
Yeah,
please.
I was going to say that she leads me as usual down the path of what I want to say, which I quite like, Natalie. Thank you. Because I was also going to ask you about, which, I mean, you've already answered me on one point, which initially is, what are the challenges to Chinese wine attracting recognition outside in the international arena, in your opinion? So I think you hit the nail on the head with your statement regarding the counterfeit, fake wine problem. However, I mean, that's obviously one, but you must have more to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. I think loads of challenges. I just adding to the fake wine thing. It's not just the imported wines that are faked. Majority of the wines, you'd be surprised at Chinese wines being faked. You have Great Wall, Changyu, those cheap wines, it's just because they're known supermarket wines. Still, people are faking it. It's a massive market over there, and it's a huge challenge to the industry, to domestic wineries and imported wineries. Adding on to that, I think it's the branding image as well. You have big volume producers like Great Wall, like Changyu. For decades, they're focusing on volume, so they're churning out plunk, filling the market. So for someone like me, imagine if you're a Chinese consumer growing up, your first encounter with a wine, with a Chinese wine, is this kind of plunk. No wonder you mix it with Sprite or Coke to make it more palatable.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not something that you, for instance, if I early on, I had a taste of wine like that, and I don't feel aspired to drink wines again, because my impression of wine is, oh my god, it's horrible. Why would I be drinking that again, right? I would rather drink a beer, something quaffable, something easy. So it's the first encounter with wine that matters as well. I think a lot of Chinese consumers, their first encounter with wine, unfortunately, is terrible. But now we have some more sort of boutique wineries trying to change that image. And like Silver Heights, like Guchang, Domaine de Aroma, or Canaan, they're making interesting wines, biodynamic, organic, natural wines. They're experiencing with pet nut wines, prices more affordable to consumers as well. We're talking about maybe 200 RMB, 300 RMB, instead of those wines that have pompous label, heavy bottles that sell for like over 2,000 RMB. Who's gonna buy it? Yeah. So you have to make it more approachable, accessible to consumers as well. I think that's one thing wineries in China gradually come to recognize, and consciously reducing the prices. Even I think 2 years ago when I visited Ningxia, most wineries, they are really setting the price points, pricing, really dropping their pricing points. Most of the ones that I saw, even close to 200. I think it's a really good thing, but it still takes a while for Chinese wine to be drank by domestic consumers or international buyers as well.
I think I agree with you. It will take time in that sense. And like you, about 2 years ago, I went to, Ningxia and, Shige.
Yes, they're very ambitious.
Yeah, I thought that was truly one of the really a world-class winery there in terms of the technology, the know-how, how they'd set it up. You know, having visited wineries all over the world, uh, to me, it was splendid. It made me feel proud that, you know, here we are, everybody looks at us and they're saying, you know, what horrible, dreadful liquid is coming out, and you define it as wine. But we are truly stepping up. And that, as you know, the Asia Pacific Wine and Spirit Institute, of which I'm the executive director, I'm of the opinion that China and other wine producing countries don't get enough coverage, beginning with the educating bodies. Now, as you know, there are a number of, there's basically three main educating bodies apart from us out there right now. And the premise that we look at is, if future and current professionals know little or nothing about Chinese wine, how can they promote it, let alone acknowledge them as a wine producing country of any consequence? So we've done something, but I'd love to know, what are your thoughts about that, Natalie?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, if the sommeliers or restaurant owners, you know, they don't even know about Chinese wine now, consumers, there's no way for them to know. Maybe they see something on social media, they heard something, read something, but if the wine is not even accessible in the local market, you know, forget about that. You can't taste it, you can't drink it.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. And you lose a generation, because
Yeah,
we are going to lose a generation. So what APWASI did, we felt compelled, and we created and we launched the world's first online course, Wines of China, to remedy this malaise.
Oh, wow, great.
And we did. And we did through research and our team, and we'll be bringing more courses from other countries that are not considered mainstream in the world of wine. If you look at most of the education material out there, you know, for the bodies, you don't see Turkey, you don't see Romania, you don't see Georgia. Hungary, they'll talk to you about Tokai only, or maybe Agir.
Russia.
Yeah. How about, you know, Croatia? So what we're doing is, when we talk about this, we're talking about bringing the Chinese wine and other countries that are not put into the educational system. So we're giving them that alternative. And what else do you think should be done, Natalie, in your opinion?
In terms of promoting Chinese wine?
Yeah, you know, we're trying our way through educating future sommeliers, future consumers, importers, exporters, visiting, letting people know about the wineries in China. They can take a course and get certified now. So we are offering scholarships at APWASI to it's called BLACC, BLACC, the Black Cellar Club of South Africa. And we have scholarships to them, and we offer those courses, and a number of those scholarships were recently awarded. So that we have people now studying wines of China.
Oh, that's really good. Thanks for doing that. I think, you know, people do need a lift, because, you know, Chinese wines are sometimes big companies like Great Wall, it's state owned. They are not never short of budget to promote. But if you look at smaller boutique wine, Aoyun, of course, they never lack budget. That's owned by LVMH. Of course, you know, you have people like DBR Lafitte growing and making wines in Shandong, Aoyun, Yunnan. Those help lift China's image as a wine producing country. But you're looking at the top echelon of wines, but going down to smaller boutique wineries, they really lack the budget. And it's really a word of mouth kind of marketing strategy. I think Domaine d'Aroma, those wineries, production is so limited. They're making biodynamic wines, and it's not very accessible to the market, but it's just I think changing people's perception of wine, understanding that it's evolution. It's not just a sort of one-dimensional image of, the state producers and the big wineries. There's so many tiers of wines. For instance, we don't say, oh, French wine is just one simplistic profile. You have so many different wine regions. And looking at China, it's the same thing. Wine from our Yunnan is going to taste drastically different from the wine from Shandong. So it's really, I think, empowering people with the education to understand the diversity of wine in China is really a good starting point for people to know a little bit more. It takes a little bit curiosity, encouragement for people to give Chinese wine a chance to just try it out, see if you like it or not.
But that's the problem, Natalie. You see, like, for example, in a place like, let's say Canada, it's monopoly. You have to go through importers. Importers know nothing about Chinese wines. Why would they import Chinese wine? That's number one. Number two, they don't even know about Chinese wine, education-wise. So forget it. That's why we did what we did.
Yeah, it's even harder.
I really had words about that, of how we could do it.
Right, and it's interesting that Clinton, well, I've been in the south of US today a little bit with someone I know down south, but ultimately, absolutely, like that point of, Natalie, you mentioned it too, like word of mouth, that people are still very heavily reliant on that, right? And I'm curious because, of course, like in your opinion, how do you think social media is actually influencing the wine industry, or is it increasing wine sales, or is it wandering, and why?
I think in general, social media does a very good job in sort of like popularizing wine and making wine more democratic, more accessible. Even just, I consider sort of Vivino part of as part of like a social media. Because a lot of people are sharing and posting, and it's reviews are more open and more public. It's no longer just about following a specific wine critic or following a specific publication. Yeah, because it's more like a community of people sharing their impressions, their takes on a certain wine label. So it makes it more accessible to a lot of more wine drinkers. If you think about it, TripAdvisor at the beginning, it's about rating hotels, rating restaurants. It's the same thing. If someone is posting something about wine on social media, Instagram or Facebook or Vivino, you have wine made in some small village of France has a higher chance of being exposed to consumers. Whereas Wine Spectator probably will never rate it because it's never imported in the US. A lot of wine critics only rate wines available in a certain market, right? But for a small producer, they certainly would benefit more from social media, that kind of exposure, that kind of reach. If you have a key influencer, for some instance, posting something about that, my God, you're looking at opening a market for this producer. So that's certainly quite good for them. And if you look at Vivino.
You must be reading my mind, girlfriend. I swear to God, you must be reading my mind. Yeah, because that was my next question. As in Vivino, the wine app, right? Yeah. Are they doing what they intended to do? Do you think? I mean, my question was: do you think that app is cannibalizing the market share? Right? Because if you're not on that, then you don't get a piece of it.
Yeah, I think, they really started something quite revolutionary. I think they just raised 150 million US dollars or something like that. And the founder actually 2 days ago had a webinar I attended. He was talking about, they set up the app for the ordinary wine consumers, not the wine geeks, someone who has a few bottles on the kitchen counter, right? Not someone who has a wine cellar.
Yeah,
And
the
if you look at
masses.
yeah, the masses. If you look at Wine Spectator or Wine Critic, they can say, well, this whole year I rated 20,000 wines, right? For Vivino, they have the capacity to rate 100,000 a day. So you look at the volume of wines they're rating. So you think about it as a TripAdvisor for the wine industry, or IMBD, of the wine industry, sort of cataloging every wine that's been produced and having people rolling in and rating it. I think it's a great thing giving people that kind of exposure. And also, I'm curious to see how they're going to use the data that they accumulated over the years, because now they have, I don't know, millions of users, how they're going to use that data sort of to profile the wines, profile people's taste buds, and how they're going to use it is going to be quite interesting.
Yes, it is. And they've also been very smart in their acquisition of talent as well, right? I mean, I'm sure you know, as I do, a mutual person that just came on board with them in Australia that came out of Hong Kong. And I was, yes, and I was quite taken, as in I thought it was a good move. But I mean, clearly, that's what we call an educated palate. And on top of that, someone that has been in the wine industry for an extensive amount of time, but that seems to be their approach. So once again, they're supporting their information feed with talent, which is a good thing.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think it's a very smart move. They're really expanding their reach. I think right now they're in 17 different markets, and Australia is the latest expansion they did. I think it will be very interesting to see if they go into China in the future, because online shopping in China is so accessible. My 80-year-old grandmother uses WeChat every day to hail taxi, to pay electricity bills. Like she's sending me like funny videos on WeChat that I don't even know how to do.
Right.
So yeah,
they're super. That's why I asked that question initially, because I mean, as we know, coming out of Asia, is that, I mean, they are super mobile, super connected, and that is, I mean, that's how all the transactions are carried out on their mobile.
On the phone. Everything's on the phone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, Natalie, I see what's happening, and you are really the scribe for the ages. You're sitting there right at the vortex of change. The paradigm shift. Before, when China was first importing, you would get entities, business enterprises who had nothing to do with wine, but they would just import as a commodity. You've seen that change. You've seen the collapse of the Australian titans, the gladiatorial power that they had, how they were put into submission very quickly, how the Chileans are coming in. Now that, you add that, and then now we talk about the wine educational industry, because there's been some huge changes. You wrote about that. And one of the things that we looked at ourselves was that we felt that many, and I wanted to get your opinion, that many of the bodies out there, they talk about and teach about grapes, regions, classifications, but there's no mention of culture, values, norms, people, what the wine is. It's an extension of a culture. I'll give you an example. When the Chinese way, where they have the two glasses and whose goes up and down as a matter of respect, when you right. We put on a TikTok for that, and you would be amazed at the number of vitriolic remarks that we received for that.
Oh, really?
Oh yes. I mean, we got over 6 million views,
Mm,
for
wow.
that. But it's so that's why we felt it was so important that the courses that are coming out from us have that cultural aspect.
Yeah.
People are open. And I'd like to hear, what do you think in terms of where the future of wine education, how the importance of it, certainly in China?
Yeah, definitely. I think the cultural aspect of wine is a huge part of learning wine, at least for me. But in China, WSET is suspended. So
Yes,
WSET
you
is not
reported
available.
that.
It's quite a big move. So at the moment, I think a lot of different organizations are reaching out to different education suppliers to fill that void. But certainly, it's going to be interesting to see how long it would take for WSET to resume their services in China. But at the same time, I think wine education is a double-edged sword, in my opinion. It's
Mhm.
good to have wine education to make wine something that's aspirational. It's part of a lifestyle that people want to have. But at the same time, I see a lot more sort of pedantic wine education in China, where people just sort of drone out technical facts to people that this is something
Absolutely.
you need to acquire to enjoy wine, which becomes a huge hindrance for people. Because at the end of the day, if you feel like, a wine student feel like, oh, I need to memorize all those technicalities, the grape varietals, the characters of a grape in order to enjoy a glass of wine, that's horrendous. No one at the end of the day
Ordeal.
would enjoy it. Yeah, if someone pours your glass, you're like, oh my god, what's the color of this? What's the weather condition of that vintage? Oh my god,
Right.
what are the characters of Razzcali or Saparavi? Let me memorize that first. It deters people from enjoying it. Whereas if you think about beer or baijiu, they're so vastly popular in China. No one tells them, oh my God, you need to memorize how baijiu is fermented before you can enjoy a glass of baijiu. No one does that in China. But
And
in
that's the
wine,
culture. We need the
yeah,
culture.
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
super fan of that statement,
Yeah.
right? Because I mean, ultimately, and I think COVID, this
Mm,
whole global situation that we're in,
yeah,
has made us even more hungry for
absolutely.
for culture because we want the travel and we want the experience and we want the terroir of
Yeah.
what makes that wine so unique and special. And I mean, in many ways, I think China is like a secret, right? Because
Well,
nobody's been there.
Steph, what I'm going
Some
to
of
do,
us have been
I'm going to
there,
make a
but most of us
statement.
haven't.
Steph, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a last statement, and then I'll give you the last question for Natalie, because I'm sure she needs time to do what she's got to do there. And I thank her for that. So Natalie,
Yeah.
um, I'd like to thank you very much on behalf of APWASI Wine Buzz, but I'm going to let Stephanie have the last word. But we, because of our strong belief, and I think it's echoed by what you've said, it's not just a matter of memorizing, oh, the Saperavi grape and this and the color before I drink, but it's the culture and it's the people. So
Yeah.
what we've got at APWASI, we've got a wine and culture series that's coming out. It's
Oh,
on a subscription basis, and you'll be one of our first guests to achieve that. Okay? I
great.
absolutely, and that'll be coming out in about 6 weeks' time. So,
Oh, well,
Steph, you've got the
that's
last
good.
question.
Yeah, well, I just because again, being one of the market leaders in Asia for a long time in what I did, and much like you, Natalie, I have so much respect for you, like doing the grunt work and doing the hard work, because I understand that so well, is that as a female journalist, as a female Chinese journalist, um,
Yeah.
your perspective, like, basically adds a lot, I think, to what's happening, uh, more so for your sensitivity and also the fact that you have to make it very understandable to others, which is a gift, I might add. But, you know, with that, you mentioned earlier that, you know, like you sent something out and you got a lot of heat for it, right? So you're, in essence, you're a shit disturber, which I've been known to be on occasion too, Clinton
Really, Steph?
Wyatt. But ultimately, I mean, you know, that like takes guts.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, I don't set out to start troubles or cause controversies, you know, for other people. But it's just, you know, I look at it as a journalism. I report the same. Report the same with wineries. I say the same thing about Chinese government. Some big companies don't like it. I receive a lot of emails. If you
Really?
write something about TW, oh God, if I can only show you the amount of emails I received. But you know, I'm a journalist. You know, I cover the industry, the good, the bad, the ugly. Of course, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, of course, some people will say, oh, you know, even I'll give you one example. If you write some companies changing CEO, people will be having problems with that. People will be like, well, why are you reporting us changing CEO? Why you don't report us, you know, some other good aspects or blah, 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 blah. Or even you say China banning Australian wines or at imports, and you have some comments from very influential Chinese officials leaving a comment on your WeChat post, you know, your headline has some issues. Why are you saying China is banning Australian wines? Things like that. You can't please anyone. You can't please everyone. I think I give up on that already.
Yeah, but I'm a big fan of, you know, causing, as one knows, like, you know, there's and it goes back to many years. I mean, the fact is you're in the news, good news, bad news, you're in there, you're getting people's attention, which I think is good because you're, again, you know, causing people to pay attention to the whole reason why we're on this chat tonight or today, whatever. Well, it's a buzz here.
Well, yeah, well, I really feel that if there is one person that is destined, because they've always told me that Chongqing people are tough people, they can take it, and they've got a strong spine. And I think given what you've gone through, the influences, there's no finer person. And your journalistic articles are ones that I always look for. So Natalie, it's been a huge pleasure having you on this program. On behalf of Stephanie, myself, and the entire APWASI Wine Buzz, thank you. Huge thank you. And again, congratulations on that award.